But my beats, they are hard.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to another live episode of the BCSN SportsWrap. I'm Bryan Fulford. That's A.D. Drew. And Drew and I, it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Drew, how you doing? How's your brackets looking?
Actually, let me take a look at them because I haven't looked at them today. I know I entered today in first place and in second place in the BCSN challenge. And had all my team, and I was still alive in the survivor pool. So how am I doing today? Let's see.
You're having a better run than me. I'll say that.
I won my. Let's see. Have I won my survivor yet? No. My survivor has not played yet. They play at 8 o'clock. I've got Iowa State in my survivor today. Ooh. And in the bracket challenge, let's see. Overall, I dropped to third in one. I'm still in first. I'm still in first though, but I dropped to three, first and third. Big Paw is splitting me. I lead with 43 points. Big Paw has 38 points. We were tied coming into today. Then I am third with 36 points.
Well, you're doing better than me. I mean, if I can find a way to fade me, I would fade me right now because I am completely opposite of everything that I am touching right now. I mean, I am total opposite of where I was during the conference tournaments. The conference tournaments, I was hot. I have not been so fortunate in the NCAA tournament.
Gotcha.
I have one. What are you looking at?
Well, Big Paw won't catch me today for first place because looking at it, we have exactly the same picks for between first and second place, but I can tie him for second place again. The key game is Arizona, Oregon. He has Arizona, and I have Oregon with my second entry. So that would be where we would. Oh, well, we've got two that are different, and I've got Ole Miss versus Iowa State.
Okay.
So I'm kind of all over the place because I've got Iowa State in my survivor bracket. So I'm hoping I don't catch him down.
It's all right. Well, the good thing about the NCAA tournament, Drew, after today, we focus on the Sweet 16. Maybe I will be a little bit better in the Sweet 16. I don't know. I mean, right now, it's just.
Are we having Are we gonna have a redemption pool?
I'm creating a
second chance pool.
To create a second chance survivor pool because, like I said, me and three other people were knocked out after the first day. Thanks, Clemson. I
had Clemson in one of my two entries also.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna do a second chance survivor pool and kind of go
second chance bracket.
Yeah, second chance bracket. All right.
Well, y'all have fun with that one. I'm going after this big money.
You're going after the big pot. I don't know. Who knows? People might be more interested in the bigger pot, Drew. I don't know. I gotta figure that out. I gotta throw it out there to the process.
Well, you're only paying 3 places, and 2 of the 3 places are owned by me. Why would I go somewhere else?
No, I see what you're saying. Exactly, Demetri. Clemson messed up everyone right off the bat.
Yeah.
And, the bad part about that game against Clemson, the whole story comes out the day before about the head coach of McNeese, formerly McNeese State, as many of us grew up knowing them as, that Will Wade was going to be taking the job at NC State. And so what's the first instant reaction that you have, Drew? Oh, fade McNeese, right? I mean, yes. I was already fading them. It wasn't really against them. It was more so, actually, in one of my brackets, I had Clemson going to the Final Four.
Oh,
right.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch. Yeah. And can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Would that be the same bracket that you and a lot of other people had St. John's going to the Final Four?
No. Actually, that is not the same bracket. No, thankfully. That is entirely that bracket I ripped up, thankfully, right off the bat. Thanks, St. John's, for being what you were, which was a poor three-point shooting team. And I should have known. I should have known. Which now because that has happened, I have the opportunity to turn my eyes into this next stage of the tournament and really focus in on what teams do well and what teams don't do well. And that's going to be the matchups that we look at. So, want to thank everybody for coming in, checking us out early. Those of you who are watching us on X, on MyBCSN 1. Also, you might be watching us on Instagram Live. We say hello to you. Hello to all of our people on Facebook, on the Black College Sports Network Facebook page, as well as the BCSN SportsWrap Facebook page. We say hello. And, of course, on YouTube, the BCSN SportsWrap on YouTube. And, of course, the JBN, Jericho Broadcast Network's page, MyJBN online. And so we say hello to those who have gotten in early, Jeff Roberts. We're going to talk about the Aggies. Disappointing season. Last two games kind of, we'll talk about that shortly. Lennon Blow, good to see you in there. He's, it was interesting. I spent a day in Norfolk or in the Chesapeake area on my spring break trip, visiting with some family. Had some interesting conversations regarding Norfolk State. But the men and women of Sparta went out in the first round, and then you lost a coach as well. So we'll talk about all that news here coming up shortly. Mary 305 checking in, Demetra checking in early. So a lot to talk about and catch up on from the HBCU basketball perspective.
Brian, you forgot the main man. The show's not official until somebody's here.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry about that. For some reason, I didn't see the name. I didn't scroll far enough. Chuck Hunt checking in from Monroe, Louisiana. Chuck Hunt's in the building. So now the show is official as he's joining us on the Facebook. So we appreciate you. If you're watching us on X or on Instagram, every now and then I think I can get I got a few folks checking in on Instagram. So appreciate those folks as well. You can always be a part of the direct chat conversations on the YouTube and Facebook feeds. Those are the feeds and X. So any of those feeds, you can directly be a part of the conversation. So Adam Spencer checking in as well on YouTube. We say hello to you. All right. I was just sitting here.
Can I get a question out the way before we dive into the sports? Just a lighthearted question.
What's that?
I got two lighthearted questions.
All right.
Number one, what's the pollen count in everyone's area? Is it up in your area? Do you have the yellow pollen? Is it bothering you? Because obviously it's baseball season now. Everybody's into baseball if you're into your HBCU sports, because basketball is over with for all HBCUs officially now. So having a 3-game series this weekend, I finally realized that, Brian, when I was 20, 30 years old, pollen didn't bother me. In my 50s. Yeah, bruh. Pollen is bothering me. Now, it's not the yellow, you got to wash your car 3 times in a day yet? Not yet, but it's enough to let you know that it's out there.
Is it noticeable through extra coughing, or is it just like you can't really kind of every now and then you just got that? Is that a product of it for some people?
For me, it's the drip. I get the drip.
Okay.
That's how it affects me. Some people it's their eyes, some people it's the coughing, some people it's the sniffing. But for me, it's the drip.
Okay. On our journey from Atlanta, where we drove from Atlanta to South Carolina, up North Carolina, Virginia, even up into the Philadelphia area, I noticed that change that you're talking about. My father, my 82-year-old father, he all of a sudden, when he left Atlanta, he was fine. But then as we're up into Philly, all he kept complaining about is my nose. My nose is running. My nose is running. And it's just,
so he gets a drip too.
I guess he gets the drip too. I don't know, but the temperatures did kind of change a little bit. I think we had a day where it was in the 50s, high 40s. So that could have been it. I don't know. But see, now that I'm back in Florida, I'm great. I have no extra cough, no sniffles, so I don't know. Maybe.
All right.
I don't know.
Now for question number 2, Bryan.
Question 2.
And this one is a little more serious.
Gotcha.
All right. Bryan, let's talk about etiquette.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Is that like common sense? That's not like common sense.
Let's talk about etiquette, especially with the generation that's behind us, or maybe 2 generations behind us, depending on who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
And Bryan, as you know, people talk on their phones. Especially when they are FaceTiming somebody or video chatting someone.
I don't have iPhone, so I'm not familiar with that life, but go ahead.
But video chatting, you're video chatting someone.
I'm rarely, but go ahead.
Okay, but not you, but not you, but the younger generation.
Uh-huh.
And most people, they're video chatting, obviously you're on speaker. So it's already bad enough that you can hear the entire conversation, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, here's the question of the day, Bryan. What is the etiquette when you are video chatting and you enter a public restroom while you are video chatting?
First, that should not happen.
Hold up. Let me explain the situation, and then you can come back with your answer. How about that?
Go ahead.
I am in a public bathroom in an indoor facility, and you just go in. You go to your urinal. I only went to the urinal, but this young man is coming out of a stall and is going to wash his hands and sets his phone down on the sink while he's washing his hands. I turn around from the urinal. I'm getting ready to go wash my hands. And I notice that the person he's talking to, I can see who they are. Your camera is still on.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, and I just stop. I make sure there's enough distance between where I'm washing my hands at and where they're washing their hands at. But still, what is the etiquette for video chatting in a public restroom, Bryan? I mean, for me, either A, let me call you back in a minute, because I really don't want to. I really don't think you want to hear me urinating. Number one, and I kept it clean. Number two, I really don't think you want to look at me or look at anybody else. Now he happened to be chatting with a male, but what if it's a female that they chatting with?
Right.
That's why inquiring minds want to know. Can somebody please help me out in the chat? Please help me out in the chat. What is the etiquette for video chatting in the public bathroom?
First off, the first thing that I caught was that you said he was coming out of a stall video chatting. See, that was the part right there that had me first looking like, huh? So you mean, bruh, you were in the stall where, you know, I'm not old enough yet where, look, this
now,
is,
whether he was standing or sitting, I didn't see it that long enough.
You're in the stall, which usually you go in the stall
for privacy,
primarily for one of two things, being the latter, if you got my drip. And I'm horrified, first off, that you're having a conversation there with another person, damn male, female,
damn gender,
another person, right? But I'm just like, bro, really? Is what you're talking on so important that you can't be like, yo, man, I got to step into the stall, handle business. Let me hit you right back. Give me 5 minutes. Damn. I mean, put the phone, even I get if you're on your earbuds, okay. Put the phone in your
speaker.
Pocket.
On speaker.
Let's see that. I got that. I'm really disturbed by this generation that does that. Just the whole speakerphone thing bothers me. Yeah. What? That's a good question. Was the
yes and yes.
Oh man. See, first off, and then the person on the other end, where's his etiquette to be like, bro, are you in the bathroom? Yo, call me back. That's another thing that I'm kind of like, yo, call me back, bro. You're in the bathroom. I don't want to see you handling your business, 1 or 2. And whatever we're talking about, it's not that important that he can't wait. It can wait. There's your etiquette. So shame on you, random. What would you guesstimate the age of this person was that was on the phone? Under 30?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely under 30.
All right. Well, shame
closer
on you.
To, I would guess closer to 20 than 30. So just something to throw out there. Now everybody's probably gonna be thinking about next time they go to the bathroom. Next time they go to a public bathroom, but it's just something that I never thought about until that moment when I was caught in it.
Let me ask one more question, one last final question here, since you took us down this road. What is the etiquette of you being the person that's in the public restroom where you potentially could be video recorded? It's like being in a locker room and somebody has a video camera on. Imagine if they were FaceTiming in the locker room, you know, which I imagine should be off limits, but we've seen cases where that has even been violated. That sort of unwritten law, unwritten code of conduct.
Yes.
You know, but what should be the etiquette for you? Should you say something? Should you not say something? Would you be worried about saying something and then getting into a discussion with some random person? Or are you old enough? Because at some point you get old enough where you like don't give a F. Like my dad is 80-something years old. He's at the age where he don't give a F, and he'll say it, and he can chalk it up to being old and senile, you know, but he's very much in his right mind. But he just knows he's at an age where he can get away with saying whatever.
Right.
You know.
Right. Brian, I was about 2 seconds from becoming uncle and be like, dude, do you mind? But by the time, Brian, after I got over the shock and could process what was going on, by that time, that person was vacating the premises. So I left it alone.
Gotcha. Right.
But if that would have been, if they would have come in, they were already in there. But if they would have come in and that same situation would have happened, yes, I would like, bro, do you mind?
Do you mind?
Do you mind?
All right.
Anyways.
Well, we got a lot of hot topics, a lot of hot news to catch up on here over the course of the week. Again, I want to give a personal shout out to thanks to Keisha of Black College Experience, who was a big part of the show last Sunday with you. And so you guys did a great job, and I was glad I was able to drop in for a segment while I was on the road. So that was pretty cool. And so this has been an interesting week, a week of first. Some first, let me go here for a second, Drew. Last year we talked about how we saw an unprecedented number of HBCU teams participating in postseason play from all levels, NAI and having success. NAIA, Division II, men's, women's, Division I teams, right? We saw teams hosting games, winning 2 and 3 games in the postseason play, right? That was an unprecedented year.
And Norfolk won that championship.
Yeah, you had Norfolk State winning a postseason tournament championship. You had Langston getting to the NAIA national championship game, losing in the championship game. So yeah, you had. I mean, that was really. We'll kind of look back on the 2024 postseason and really talk about how great that was in hindsight. This year has been half the scale of that. And there's still a couple of teams that are left open, but I'm curious what your take is on maybe why, Drew, we have not seen, why we didn't get the number of postseason from the men's perspective. I mean, from the women's perspective, you had 4 teams. Well, you had 2 teams in the NCAA, of course. 4 teams.
Potentially a third if they didn't collapse at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah, Lady Aggies, I mean, first, the number 1 seed knocked out in the quarterfinals.
Which is a first.
Which is a first. So you had 2 in the NCAA. You ended up with 4 in the NCAA, in NIT, women's NIT. And then you had the Lady Aggies playing in the WBIT, which was the NCAA-sponsored postseason alternate tournament, even though there was a WNIT, which has been functioning for about almost 25 years. So for whatever reason, it's crazy. There's a WNIT, a men's NIT that the NCAA runs, but I guess because the NCAA maybe couldn't get their hands on the WNIT, they created their own WBIT, Basketball Invitational Tournament, I think is what it's called. And so, anyway, so there's that. But what happened on the men's side, Drew? I mean, we knew the men's NIT was separating and pushing away from including us/FCS. But then what about all the other tournaments? You had nobody going to the CIT, the CBI. Heck, nobody even went to the, I want to get the initials right, the CBIC. Nobody went there either.
BCIC.
See, I can't even get it right. The BCIC. You started this because you had me saying something else last couple weeks ago. But anyway, I can't even get the initials right. What happened, Drew? What do you think happened?
Number one, on the men's side, I think we were a product of our schedule. If you look at non-conference, what the teams did in the non-conference, our women's teams performed better, relatively speaking, out of conference than our men's teams did out of conference. We had some teams, Bryan, that went into their respective conference tournaments that were upside down still. So it's kind of hard. One of the usual basic requirements, Bryan, to get to any one of these postseason tournaments is 500 overall. Well, when you look at the men's pool of teams, Bryan, how many teams did we really have that were over 500? If you said something, you're on mute.
How many teams were over 500?
Yes, overall. And a lot of these teams that were over 500.
I'll pull it up real quick. Go ahead.
Well, like 17-16, one game over 500.
From the MEAC,
you
had South Carolina State. Like,
correct.
South Carolina State was 20-13. They had, obviously they had a nice hefty. They had like a 12 or 13 game win streak before they lost that championship game. And then Delaware State finished 16-14. That was it.
Exactly.
For the SWAC, let's see. I'm gonna go here quickly. Pull up the SWAC site. Let's see, basketball standings. I know obviously outside of the champs.
I'm not counting the championship team.
Okay. Southern was a 20-11 team that was definitely worthy of going somewhere from a postseason perspective. In any other year, Southern would have gotten an invitation to somebody's postseason play. And because remember, Southern, I think, had the best. I don't know if they had a better. Well, probably the second best net rating to Norfolk State. I can pull it up quickly. Then the only other above 500 team was Bethune-Cookman, and they were just one game over 500.
Right. So on the men's side, there wasn't a large pool, Brian.
Okay.
But
even last year, there were some teams that got invited to some things that didn't have 500 seasons, like Alabama A&M. I remember got invited.
Right.
But I hear what you're saying.
Let me keep going. So number one, we don't have 500 teams because of the non-conference. Number two, check Tennessee State too. I think Tennessee State might have been right. Tennessee State was right there around 500.
No, they were below 500
overall,
at least against Division I opponents.
Yeah,
14-16 against Division I opponents.
And I'm glad you said that, Brian, because that's the other thing. All schedules are not made the same.
Right.
Division I.
South Carolina State was 17-13 against Division I opponents, a net rating of 196, so top 200.
Which is good for South Carolina State. Congratulations.
Norfolk State 21-11. Obviously, they were in a tournament, so
we can't count. I'm not counting it.
Who was the other? Southern 17-12 against Division I opponents, net rating 224.
Right. So you have to factor some of those things in to why we didn't get any berths. Number two, Brian, you do realize that every postseason tournament that you're talking about costs the school money.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you host or whether you travel, because if you host, obviously you have to pay whatever it costs for you to operate a game on a daily basis. You have to pay that expense out. And some team budgets may be tapped out, Brian. So if I'm over budget, at budget, that's another factor that may go in there. I'm glad Dr. Cavill brought up the BCIC. I don't know on the Division I level, but maybe some of these teams were banking on possibly going to this BCIC. So that's another one that may have played one way or another, because I don't know. I would much rather go to a tournament where I'm getting something paid for, a la BCIC, versus a tournament where I have to pay everything, especially if I'm going to be on the road no matter what. So it's a lot of different factors that go into it. And then, Brian, mental fatigue. Coaches know. Some of these players have, as soon as they lose their last game, they are mentally checked out. Y'all think we be playing when we talk about 1, 2, 3 spring break. Some of these kids have mentally checked out when they lose that game. And it's hard to keep these kids around. And from an administrative standpoint, depending on when your spring break is at your particular institution, do I reach into my budget not only to pay for the game, be it home, be it away, but if we're on spring break, now I have to pay to house those kids, and I have to feed those kids. Yep. So that's additional budget considerations that you have to think about when you're making these tournaments. Yeah, do people have this money in their budget? Yeah, any smart administrator is going to plan for postseason in their budget. But depending on what finance says on the other half of campus, like you need to cut some money because you overspent over here or over there, or let's be real, inflation is real. When those budgets were done early last year for this year, hotel prices have changed, gas prices have changed. We definitely know food prices have changed. So although you planned your budget properly, you still may be over your budget based on inflation, and this may be an opportunity to save that money on the other hand. Thank you, Dr. Cavill. I was
going to say this was going to be mine.
Who was it? It was somebody before they even left out the locker room had declared they were going to the portal. We have seen instances of this. So
we've talked about this. Yeah, kids are gone before the end of the season.
How many of these kids are invested in going and playing in a tournament knowing that I am going into the portal?
Yeah.
So, Bryan, let's take another one. Let's take an Alcorn. The players might not be going, but hell, the coach decided he was going. So that's another one. That's another thing you have to factor in, Bryan. There are a lot of moving parts on whether you accept, whether you don't accept. Because the one thing, and every administrator will probably say, if we're going to play in this tournament, do we have a chance to win it? Because we're not going if we don't have a chance to win, especially if it costs us money.
Yeah. I'm glad Doc chimed in with that thought, because that's where I was going. And this is going to be the challenge. And I don't know all the inside reasons as to why as he mentioned, the CSI didn't have a tournament this year. And some of the other, we know that the BCIC had challenges from a division with the Division I obligations that were out there, with some of the SWAC, MEAC schools. But I think tournaments are going to have to add in it's great that you're playing it's great that maybe a tournament like the BCIC is paying the programs or saying, hey, you don't have to worry about your cost. But you know who you are going to have to worry about tournaments, postseason tournaments? In the age of NIL, you're going to have to worry about doing something more than just giving kids a flight, 2-3 more games, some free shoes, and you're going to have to actually put in some NIL dollars or create a component that adds into the play. Because as you said, Drew, the kids are checked out mentally, exhausted. They're exhausted of hearing their coaches, maybe. And especially if you haven't had the winning season that you were fighting to have all year.
Take a Southern. Take a Southern. Don't you think it was tough for them to go back to class after finishing number one in the season, in the SWAC? When they get back to class, don't you think their classmates, those non-athletes, are going to be giving them that woulda, shoulda, coulda?
Well, they did come out with a regular season championship.
But Bryan, once again, we talk about 18 to 22-year-olds. You don't think that the classmates are going to be ragging on them a little bit, just a little bit?
Look, them boys, if the BCIC, and look, you can tell me everything, and I know they're putting together plans and having, yes or no, was there an NIL component for student athletes? I haven't paid that much attention, but I haven't heard that there was an NIL component. And the reason I bring that up is because Okay, so Dim Boy says there was an NIL component. Okay, so that's great. That's great. Small amount. What is small amount? $500? $1,000? I don't know. You know what? Whatever it is. You know, I think the communication is going to have to be well in advance in the future to get teams to want to be a part of this. And again, you know, I like the effort. I like the concept. So I'm not here to bash the concept. You know, and this is sort of coming back, rewinding myself, Drew. Well, no, it's an old take. I don't want to give it. I mean, I was gonna talk about the whole. You know, we jokingly talk about the whole 1, 2, 3 spring break thing. But again, what we do know, and I've heard this firsthand from not only coaches but people who are close to athletic programs, student athletes who know they're going to transfer in January, most likely are already preparing themselves to transfer. And late in the season, regardless of postseason awards, when you finish the regular season and a call comes to you via a family member or a coach and says, hey, you've done great at this mid-major program, but I got a Power 5 program that wants you, you might want to be injured. You might want to be unavailable for, you know, if you're 50-50, yeah, you may not want to be on the other side of the 50 to play. I'm just saying that happens, guys. That's the reality. And so pay attention to, you know, the transfer portal that officially opens on Monday, tomorrow. But guess what, Drew? There were hundreds of kids making it known that they are entering the transfer portal all last week. From HBCUs, mid-majors, majors, and these are guys who maybe for the first time in their season. Okay, thank you, Dot. Okay? See, I knew that. Okay, thank you, Dot, for clarifying. I knew that that tournament did not have an NIL component because I'm telling you that there was only one that was talking about exactly the college basketball crown in Vegas, which is played after the NCAA tournament, which I think that even has some contractual things tied to it with various conferences. I guess we've hit on all the factors. There are a lot of factors that go into it. There's no one solid answer. We're in a new age of college athletics, and the college athletics strive for March postseason play. Drew, it begins in November and December, ladies and gentlemen. That's the big point. November and December is where you stake your claim on your viability of playing postseason basketball in March. Sure, the conference season helps, and it is a major factor at the one bid leagues, right? But for so many other programs, what you do in November and December in your non-conference matters. You know, I want to say this, Drew, and because I know time is getting away from us and we're getting a little long. I want to look at a case study, and we can bring this up here after the break regarding a couple of big name coaches, coaching MVPs, coach of the years who are stepping away from the HBCUs to pursue other opportunities. And I would say there's an interesting point that while we watch these coaches move from HBCU to the SEC or to another FBS, or not FBS, but another Power 5 or up to a Power 5, Power 4 or level, whatever you want to call it, a more resource school. I don't even know what the proper
mid-major. Just say mid-major.
But we're already mid-major. HBC, I would call HBCUs mid-majors.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's why I said a more resource school. Whatever. I think the NCAA tournament seeding that we always fuss about, and I think it became very much in the press again after comments by Robert Jones of Norfolk State. We saw what the women did, but it's interesting that the women of Norfolk State got a 13 seed after winning 30 games. Very much like Jackson State's women who got a 14 seed after winning like 25 games. You know, I think to overcome the ratings of your conference, you have to have such a spectacular season in terms of total wins that it just can't be avoided. Like you just can't. They can't avoid you. They couldn't avoid Norfolk State with a 13 seed, you know. And the bad part for Norfolk State being in the women's tournament is that the top 4 seeds host, right? So, you know, you were going to end up playing. It's very much it's worse than women. It's worse than volleyball, really, or it's almost as bad as volleyball. It's like, you know, you're going to end up
women's basketball, volleyball, softball, and baseball.
Yeah,
you have to play the home team in the first round.
And who are the home teams?
those autonomous 2 schools.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. All right, let's take a break and come back. Let's talk about
let's keep going because we still got 12 minutes before I got it.
All right, so let's do this. Okay, so we'll keep it going because I know we got a hard break that we got to take here in about 15 minutes. So
11 actually.
Before, you know, obviously some of the scores and news we'll get to in a moment, a little bit later. But early this week, coaching changes. That was the big thing this week. 2, I would say 3 or 4 major stories. Two of them from the basketball side are basketball coaches who are leaving their institution on the men's side and the women's side. And then obviously you've got a football hire, and then we've got a legendary coach that resigned or retired. Which one?
Stepping away. That way we don't get it wrong.
Stepping away. Right. I'm retiring or resigning before you fire me. Maybe that's all right. 2-time SWAC regular season champion and coach of the year, Landon Bussey, decided to step away from Alcorn State to take over at Chicago State. The Chicago State program, Chicago State University, which at one point, Drew, in the past 4 to 5 years was one of the worst basketball programs in Division I. It was right there floating with South Carolina State and Mississippi State. I'm sure in some joking circles, many people would joke that it was an HBCU. I don't know.
Hold it, you know, that is actually the school that the BAC was looking to add to their conference once everybody had left.
Right?
Yeah. So you joking that it is HBCU. It is a MSI. Chicago State is an MSI, which is a minority serving institution, but they are not classified as an HBCU. Okay. But and they're looking at adding football, which is a total side story, which may push them to the BAC, but we'll come back to that one later.
Right. And I think the biggest thing, if you had a chance to catch any of the shows, whether it be Carlos Brown's show right here on the network or Dr. Cavill's show from Thursday, and I don't know if he hit on this or not, but I know Carlos and them talked about it on Saturday, is the relationship that Landon Bussey has with the Vice President of Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, Dr. Monique Carroll.
And Doc did hit on this.
Okay, Doc did get to it. So yes. The relationships are what's there. And, you know, Bussey, who is a Baltimore, Maryland native, okay? So don't miss for a second that being back in a big city environment means something. Even though he's a graduate, got his master's and bachelor's at Zula, and obviously did a great job at Alcorn. But you got a chance to be
part of some successful programs at PV.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, but getting a chance to be in Chicago, at a school that sponsors 16 Division I sports, you're going to compete in the Northeast Conference, and yes, Drew, as you mentioned, there's that flirtation with possibly joining the MEAC, but it's just it was time, I think, for Bussy to really advance. I'm aware that even prior to this past season, Bussy, I think he was on the watch list at Florida A&M University for the position at FAMU, if I'm not mistaken, via the public records request. I mean, he had submitted his name to be a coach at Florida A&M. So, the people who hired Landon Bussy, I don't believe were no longer at Alcorn. So all of those things kind of factor into, why he would leave, Drew. Is Landon Bussy moving into a better position? And if his long range goal, and this, I got to give Coach Petway this props. And I'm going to encourage you, if you didn't go here, I think it's the first hour of the Carlos Brown show from Saturday. You can go listen to it on the BCSN pod. Coach Petway brought this great point up about advising coaches, and maybe it was just one coach or maybe any coach who asked him, be careful of that next job that you take coming out of an HBCU. Or maybe it was more so paraphrased with, when you're at a job, be careful about looking at what that next job is, because if you don't go to that next job and have success, like if Landon Bussy goes to Chicago State and they continue to stay bad, that's not going to help you with your future dreams of going higher, right?
Not as a head.
Not as a head coach, no. So there's levels to this strategy. You got to be very careful. So I go back to the question on the floor to you, Drew. Is Landon Bussy moving into a better position at Chicago State University?
What's the budget? And the reason I bring that up is because it's no secret. Outside of Valley, Alcorn may have the lowest budget in the SWAC. Alcorn has a budget that rivals a lot of D2s. There are a number of D2s that have budgets bigger than Alcorn State. So is that a factor, Brian? Obviously, Chicago, if they can get the grades, you got talent around the corner everywhere in Chicago. And you a stone's throw from Detroit, Indianapolis. That's a hotbed for just basketball talent in that area. St. Louis, Kansas City. So,
just over
that's something else.
According to the information that I'm looking at here, they have a budget of just over $1 million
for basketball,
for men's basketball.
And this is who?
Chicago State.
Okay. And do you have what Alcorn's number was?
According to that same site, about $640,000 in total expenses and revenue.
So he doubled his budget.
About doubled it, yeah.
Yeah. Now, obviously, probably a lot of that is travel related because, coming from Chicago, I don't know how big the Northeast Conference is, but I'm assuming they fly a lot more than Alcorn did.
Oh, probably. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know Chicago State, I don't know too much about Chicago State. I was just kind of looking here, and their athletic budget in total seemed a little small from the couple of sites that I'm peering into that talk about the budgeting for Chicago State athletics. So,
and if I remember correctly, Chicago State is more of a commuter transient school versus Alcorn, which is a lot more of a residential school.
Right. So you said yeah. So with that little bit of knowledge about the budget, better job, even worse.
I know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Northeast 10 is a little bit more of they're a higher rated conference in the SWAC. Would I be wrong in saying that?
The NEC?
Yes.
Here, I'll tell you here. I'm looking at conference ratings now. Conference ratings from the NEC. Let's see. It is just a smidge in front of the MEAC and SWAC.
Okay. So they're one of the bottom. So they're bottom.
One of the bottom four. One of the bottom four. Yeah.
Okay. So,
St. Francis, who Alabama State defeated in the first four, they were the champions of the NEC.
Yes.
So Fairleigh Dickinson also came out of that conference. Those are just two of the more recent teams that have had, some recognition in the NCAA tournament.
It's hard to say, Brian. I mean, it's really hard to say. Right. It's almost like a lateral to me.
Break even? Them boys said it's a break even move. Yeah, it's kind of a lateral. Yeah.
Except for maybe the extra budget, maybe a lateral, especially on the competitive front.
Okay. The other big news that hit the wires started coming out yesterday following Norfolk State women's loss to Maryland was that Larry Vickers was rumored to be the new head coach of Auburn University, the SEC school, and that news was made official this morning as Norfolk State's women's coach from the past, almost the past decade at Norfolk State. He had a 177-99 record. He was 83-18 over the past 3 seasons, leading Norfolk State to a three-peat, not only in the regular season, but in the conference tournament. They went from a 16 seed 2 years ago, a 15 seed last year. This year, they were a 14 seed in the tournament. 13 seed. 30-5 record, which I gotta go. I think I gotta go look in the record books and see when's the last HBCU women's team. Maybe Cheney University might have been the last 30-win HBCU women's basketball team. Yeah, I don't know. Somebody has that intel. But 30 wins, an outstanding season by Vickers. Well, Vickers is moving from the MEAC to the SEC.
That's a big jump.
In so many ways, from a budgetary standpoint. The Norfolk State women's basketball budget was about $1.33 million. He walks into a program that has that last year I think was about 5.6 million.
Yeah, 5.6, 5.8, something like that.
You mentioned facilities. You mentioned the fact that hey, you're now in the SEC. I'd ask.
Hell, you're gonna be on TV a hell of a lot more.
You're gonna be on TV a whole heck of a lot. Even though I enjoyed his post-game presser when he did mention the fact that the impact of being on ESPN Plus as much as they were was it kind of eased his mind a little bit when Diamond Johnson transferred, from her previous school to Norfolk State, and Larry, Coach Vickers had mentioned how, she could very well be the first HBCU player drafted in the second, because wasn't the young lady from Jackson State drafted in the 3rd round?
She was drafted, but she didn't make it.
Well, she was drafted. I didn't say you had to make it. I just said drafted. Well,
Misha Williams
Diamond Johnson could be the first round or 2nd round HBCU player drafted in the WNBA. I think that is a reality for her. So I think
let's get ready for that break.
Yeah, I got you. So let's take a short break, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Vickers moving to the SEC, and we're going to juxtapose that against last year's hot coach, Tamika Reed. And is there something going on here that we need to discuss, Brian? There might be something we're talking about.
Y'all might want to hang on for this one.
Yeah, let's take a short break. Come back. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap right here on the Black College Sports Network. A.D. Drew, Bryan Fulford. We'll be back in just a moment.
Planning an event? From weddings to corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC brings over 15 years of experience to make your vision a reality. Based in Metro Atlanta and serving statewide, even internationally, we provide versatile event planning and authentic catering cuisines tailored to your needs. Whether it's pre-game meals for student athletes, fundraisers, weddings, corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC is your one-stop solution for exceptional service and unforgettable food. Our diverse culinary heritage means we cater to all cultural tastes, dietary needs, and food restrictions, making every meal uniquely yours. Let's make your next event unforgettable. Visit us on all social media at CMJ Events LLC or email us at cmjeventsllc@gmail.com. Also give us a call at 404-664-3882 so that we can start planning now.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU Sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to The Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Bryan, A.D, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down. It's like a loot machine.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to The Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Brian Fulford here. A.D. Drew will be here in a second. He's taking care of something hot in the kitchen, so I know he will be popping in here in a second. Again, before we come back to the quick mention about Larry Vickers moving from Norfolk State to Auburn, I did want to take a second and go through just some of the games and some of the things that the headlines from this past week of action from the NCAA level, and even a little bit from the NAIA, because I'll start with the NAIA, because I think by the time from the show last week, I think it had already been determined that 3 institutions and the NAIA level had advanced to the round of 16. That was the Langston University Women's Program, Xavier University Women's Program, and then the Langston University Men's Program, all advancing to the round of 16 in the NAIA National Tournament. Unfortunately, none of them advanced to the quarterfinals of the tournament. All 3 teams lost in their first game in Kansas City. So the great seasons for Langston and for Xavier come to an end. And, I know that Drew and Keisha had kind of mentioned the Division II schools. So maybe we'll get a chance to kind of go back, but none of them were playing this past week, as all of their seasons had come to an end. But obviously from the NCAA side of things, when you just think about as a whole what we had, and we kind of mentioned this at the start of the show, that really you only had 2 men's teams participating in the national tournament. You had obviously Norfolk State and you had Alabama State. Alabama State, of course, playing in the opening round of the tournament. See, we have to stop calling it the play-in. It's not the play-in anymore. It's actually a part of the tournament. The first 4 is considered the first 4 games of the tournament. I know what we used to call it. I know how we think of it. Those of us who grew up on the traditional 64-team field. but hey, you do get a financial reward and you do get a financial credit when you do play, in the NCAA's first 4 round. So you had Alabama State playing against St. Francis University, and then you had Norfolk State, who was participating and playing against Duke in that field as well. Obviously, the big story happened on Tuesday, right? When Alabama State defeated St. Francis 70-68 in terms of probably the second greatest, I don't know, in the NCAA tournament, there have been some pretty dramatic full court heaves to win a ball game. I would put this at number 3. Obviously, number 1, I would say, was the Christian Laettner turnaround jump shot on the pass from Grant Hill. Number 2, if you remember the Valparaiso, I think it was Scott Drew it was almost a 3/4 court pass. I don't know who the young man who went up and caught the ball near half court, but in midair, he caught the ball, turned to his left, fired it over to Drew, and Drew hit a shot on the 3-point line, and that was at a buzzer. So, and the only reason I'm putting those 2 above the play at the end of the Alabama State St. Francis game is that, it was not the end of the game. So when Amar Knox on a half-court baseball, almost a three-quarter court baseball Hail Mary throw, catches the ball off the fingertips, right, of a teammate and finishes up the tip, puts it up into the basket. There was 0.6 seconds left. So that's the only reason I don't move that into number 1 or 2. Obviously, also, it could have moved up ahead of Drew. Now, again, the first one, the Leitner turnaround jump shot, put Duke into the Final Four, right? So that was pretty in terms of in the moment. And it was sort of the kickstart of the Duke era, the Duke dynasty, right? But it could have jumped over the Scott Drew one had it been at the end of the game, because just the fact that the ball touched 3 different people's hands or deflected off of 2 different people and ended up in the hands of Amar Knox, who had the composure to come up with the ball, catch it, and finish off that basket. That was a great game for Alabama State. The team who got their first ever tournament win in school history. And again, what an outstanding job again for Alabama State. An outstanding run. Coach Madlock, again, an amazing job. The story arc of his run from South Carolina State turns around one of the worst programs in college basketball, turns it around before the current coach had to turn it around again. I mean, that's so, let that sink in. The fact that South Carolina State has had 2 different periods in the last 5 years where they basically had to turn around, had coaches come in and turn around their program. But Madlock did that in 1 year. Then when Mo Williams left Alabama State after 2 subpar seasons, and then he takes over, comes back to the state of Alabama, and rebuilt the program, got him to the SWAC championship game, beat Mo Williams and Jackson State in the championship game. So, I mean, that had to be, and then goes to the NCAA tournament and wins the first. So, an outstanding run there for Madlock and Coach Madlock and those guys. And the financial rewards of that game from Pete Thamel, who pointed this out via Twitter following the game. He said the thrilling NCAA tournament win for Alabama State over St. Francis will be celebrated in SWAC headquarters. Per the NCAA, the value of a men's basketball unit this season is $348,000. That means an additional payout of nearly $2.1 million over 6 years for the league. So, congratulations to Alabama State and the SWAC, and again for putting money in the conference's coffers. And I guess we'll talk a little more about what all that looks like for the rest of the conference a little bit later. Drew, welcome back. A.D. Drew in the building. Everything good on the stove?
No comment.
All right.
Let's just put it like this. I'm glad my alarm doesn't do the automatic call. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully did we get you out of here in time? I guess is the question.
I got it out of the oven in time, but since there was a spillage,
okay.
when I opened up the oven door, the next thing that went off, smoke detectors.
Oh,
so
okay.
I had to wait till the smoke cleared out downstairs before I came back on the air.
All right. I was just finishing up talking about
meatloaf. And I forgot to put the drip pan to catch the grease.
True. All right. Anyway, I was finishing up talking about Alabama State. This nice little graphic put up by NBC Sports. Every HBCU to win a Division I men's basketball tournament game. Heck of a run over the past since COVID. If you think about it, since the COVID season, well, actually, we'll go back even further. You could say since the 2018 Texas Southern year, you know, we've had the only years that went missing in which there was a season played was 2019, because the 2020 season was the one that was canceled due to COVID.
And 21, you had 2 wins.
Exactly. 21, you had 2 wins. That was the year of COVID, right? Or the following season.
And if I remember right, wasn't that the year where they both played in the first 4 and played back to back?
Yes, they played in Bloomington, matter of fact. They played in Indiana. Bloomington, Indiana. Yep, they played in Bloomington, Indiana, my home state. So that you had Texas Southern and Norfolk State. Then you had 22, Texas Southern again. Then I guess 23. You didn't have anybody in 23, so I guess you'd have to say 23. We didn't have anybody. 24, Grambling State. 25, Alabama State. Now,
what year was that, Dr. Cavill?
That mentions UAPB. That's interesting. Interesting what year this was. Now, I'm curious as to what year this was that he mentions that they didn't make it. But you see Coppin State, you see the Hampton team, A&T in 2013. I think Hampton was a 15 seed. I'm not sure what Coppin was. That's an interesting thing, mate.
I think Coppin was a 15 that year also.
Coppin was a 15. Yeah, there were some years where the MEAC teams were getting 15 seeds.
Right. FAMU, I believe, was the first 4.
That was the first 4 victory when FAMU in 2004 beat Lehigh. That was in the first 4.
What year was that with Southern? I can't see what year
1993. And 1993.
Was that Avery Johnson?
I don't know. I'm not really sure. Do a quick search. The UAPB was vacated, so Doc says they didn't list UAPB. The UAPB one was vacated apparently. still counts, and yes, the MEAC has only won since 2015. Hampton was the first 4 in 2015. All right, so appreciate that spotlight. So the reason I bring all that up is because while you had that historic first day of the tournament for Alabama State, an even more historic feat happened the next day for Southern University as the conference champs took on UCSD, California, San Diego. Yep. Pretty much dominated, controlled that game. 68-56. Southern's defense was locked down. It was great. You got to love the visuals. You saw the Human Jukebox Pet Band, the cheerleaders, all traveling to California. That game was hosted on site where UCLA plays because they were the 1 seed. So the winner of this game was going to advance to play UCLA in the next round. It was a historic first win, not only for Southern University, but also for the SWAC, because there had only been previous to that game 3 other HBCU women's teams to have an NCAA tournament win. Of course, Cheney University losing in the championship game. I believe that was in 1982. Then you had Howard University, South Carolina State winning games, but Southern University became the first SWAC school to win a tournament. So congratulations to and Drew. This was, I don't know what the payout was, but this was also the first year, which this part blows my mind. The first year that the women's tournament wins generated a payout. I don't know if it was similar to the men's, but it generated a payout.
It's not going to be at the level that the men's payout is, but it's more than what they was getting.
Right.
And Brian, why you got that graphic on there? When are we going to get the 30 for 30 on Cheney?
I think there's a couple of documentaries already on Cheney. There is. I think it.
I see Stephen Gaither on there. I need to see a feature on that, Gaither.
Somebody has done. Correct me if I'm wrong. There is a feature that has been done about Cheney and the Cheney women. I think it had to do with them being inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame. Yeah. Well, Steve said they did one in 2022. I don't know if that's the one that I saw, to be honest. This one was surrounding their induction into the
Thank you, Steve.
Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm trying to remember the specific year. They lost to Louisiana Tech in the finals. But if I remember right, that was back when USC and likes of those with Cheryl Miller and all those people, the McGee twins, I think Jackie Joyner was already gone by then. Y'all didn't know Jackie Joyner was a hell of a basketball player. She played at USC. But wasn't that back during those times? If it wasn't, it was right after that USC, those USC dynasties.
Yeah, it was before. It was. Oh, I watched these documentaries, so I should know this. That season, I think that was the first year of the NCAA tournament. That they had the first year of the NCAA tournament for women. Drew, if I had known you were gonna.
No, I'm sorry, man. I'm just.
That's right. Yeah,
because I know this, but I don't know this. So I think this may have been pre Cheryl Miller then, 82.
Because Miller and they won in 83 and 84. Right. 82 was Louisiana Tech. Right. Obviously, yes. Emmett Jones.
And Kim Mulkey was on there at Louisiana Tech.
Kim Mulkey was the little point guard for the 82 Louisiana Tech team. Right. And that was the year. What sticks in my mind about that 82 year, the Final Four t-shirt that they did not expect Cheney to be there. They left them off of the Final Four shirt. There was a generic figure of a woman holding a basketball, kind of like the logo, NBA logo kind of thing. And it said Women's NCAA Final Four, something to that effect. And it had 3 of the 4 schools. Well, missing on the shirt was Cheney. And yeah, so Cheney ended up getting to the championship game and almost ended up almost pulling off what Florida A&M did in the NCAA Division I AA championship in the first year, which was winning the inaugural title. And
the coach of that team was, Brian?
C. Vivian Stringer.
All right.
Yeah. And then Steven said, yep. Then they split the divisions, and then Virginia Union came around in 1984 and won Division II. They were like, whoa. We got to hold on a second. These black schools coming in. But anyway, fascinating history. I mean, and obviously it's one of those things that I'm glad you brought that up, Drew, because it's a story that should be retold every year. Because obviously every year you're going to catch some new eyes. and somebody who may not be familiar with the story will see it and be like, oh, really? There was a, Cheney University, an HBCU,
Most people don't even know anything about Cheney anymore.
Well, yeah, because
they're not one of the.
They're not collegiately active.
I mean, they're
that's how we
NAIA now.
view everything, right? That's how we view everything in college athletics right now. Yeah, that's how we view everything now. Let me go down. Continue to just kind of touch on a couple of the other news from the past week before we come back to our mention of Vickers, Larry Vickers, who's now the new coach at.
Yes, I do remember
Auburn
that,
University.
Steve. It was before he went to Temple.
Right. This was a year in which you had 4 teams in the women's NIT. And you had a school in the WBIT, which again, for those who are like, wait a minute, there are 2 women's postseason tournaments. Yes. I had to be educated on this as well. The WBIT, I think, is in its 2nd year. It is sponsored and organized, ran by the NCAA. But there is a WNIT, which I think started around 2000. That organization is not run by the NCAA, unlike the men's NIT tournament, which is run by the NCAA. I know I'm confusing somebody.
I think they're ran by the organization who used to run the NIT. Who still does run the NIT, which is where it came from.
Possibly. You might be onto that. But anyway, so the commitments on regular season champions and where they go versus the teams that don't win the regular season champions, where they go are all kind of tied into the WBIT, WNIT. Well, North Carolina A&T were the regular season champs in the CAA, missed out on going to the tournament. Again, one bid leagues, missed out, losing in the quarterfinals, but they did get the automatic qualifier to go to the WBIT. In the WNIT, you had 4 schools, 2 from the MEAC, Howard and Coppin State, 2 from the SWAC, Texas Southern, and Alabama A&M. 3 of the 4 in the WNIT won in the first round. 3 of the 4. You had Texas Southern, who hosted St. Mary's on Thursday, got a 54-50 win in a historic first postseason tournament win for Texas Southern. So again, we talked about historic first, Alabama State having a historic first, Southern having a historic first, Texas Southern having a historic first. And then you also had Howard University on Friday at home hosting. They won 72-62. And that was their first WNIT win. Of course, as you saw the graphic, Howard has an NCAA win under their belt. This is their first NCAA victory, WNIT victory under their belt. And then on Saturday, Coppin State defeated Colgate 58-48. They actually went on the road. Unlike Howard and Texas Southern, who hosted, Coppin State went on the road, got a 58-48 victory. Now, the one team that I didn't mention that didn't get a win was Alabama A&M. They went on the road, lost to Chattanooga, who was at home 53-49. A game that Alabama A&M definitely had chances to win down the stretch, but couldn't make a basket, couldn't execute and get a good offensive bucket at the end. The final 2 minutes was a tough watch because I think at one point Alabama A&M had a 4-point lead with about 2 minutes to play. Couldn't close it out, ended up losing by 4 to Chattanooga. And then as mentioned, North Carolina A&T ended up losing earlier in the week, and I didn't write down who they lost to. I didn't have that written here, but they ended up they lost in the opening round. So still alive. You've got playing tomorrow. I was just looking at the schedules here. Playing still alive tomorrow in the, let's see, WNIT second round. Texas Southern will be at Louisiana Tech, 7:30 p.m. No listing on where that game will be broadcast. Howard will be at Charleston, at the TD Arena in Charleston. That is the second round game in the women's NIT. So that is on Monday. Neither game right now is listed as being broadcast on ESPN Plus. Thank you, Jeff. A&T lost to Virginia Tech. That's right. Virginia Tech in the WBIT was a 1 seed. And so the Aggies, a good season kind of falls flat in the last 2 games of the season for North Carolina A&T women. Disappointing end, but hopefully there's still a lot of still a successful season, none all the same. And then for Coppin State, they take they will travel to Cleveland State on Tuesday. That game will be on ESPN Plus on Tuesday, 7:00. So on Monday and Tuesday, you've got the women's NIT, some HBCU teams still competing there. All right. Let's before we let me make let's come back to the quick conversation that we were having regarding Larry Vickers and just kind of
I said we're gonna juxtapose that with Tamika Reed.
Yeah, and I wanted to do that because I think it's important. I think there's some significance in these 2 coaches that did a great. I mean, these were the 2. I would say 2 of the last 5 years. I think there have been 4 dominant, really high-level women's basketball programs. I think they have, in my opinion, I think they've been Jackson State, Norfolk State, Howard, and North Carolina A&T. Now, somebody may want to argue me off of one, but I'm just talking body of work over the last 4 or 5 seasons. Would you agree or disagree, Drew?
Oh, I totally agree with you.
Okay. Jackson State and Tamika Reed was the first, coach to, she compiled from 2018 to 2014, which I think is about a six-year run. Now, that's including a COVID season, so really it's probably only 5 seasons of actually playing. Or she had a 125 and 54 overall record. That's almost a 70% win percentage rate. She was 95 and 10 in the conference. That's a 90% winning rate. Okay. Never forget her best seasons were the 21-22 season, where they had a record 23 and 7 overall. They went unbeaten in the SWAC, 18-0. Then 2 years later, she came back with a better overall record, 26 and 7, and another unbeaten record in the SWAC. Both of those teams, Drew, were, let me see, postseason NCAA tournament teams. The 21-22 team was a 14 seed. They lost to LSU. And 2 years later, the 15-seeded team, they were a 15-seeded team, right? And they lost. Now, when she took the job to go to Charlotte, remember, we talked about that a year ago. And we talked about the fact that she took over a Charlotte program. I think that is in CUSA.
Yeah.
And she tripled the budget of her program, tripled her salary too, which was all good numbers. But Larry Vickers, who was at Norfolk State for 9 seasons, almost a decade, right? And we've seen the numbers, what he's done over the last 3 seasons. His overall, win percentage is about 64%, 177 and 99 overall. The last 3 years, he had, and this is what I think is interesting, Drew. Vickers has had a 3-year run similar to the 3-year run that Reed had. And Reed actually had a 4-year run that was interrupted by Southern beating them in the conference championship, right?
No, conference semifinal.
I'm sorry, thank you. Conference semifinal, right? Now, as we've seen, Larry Vickers, his salary balloons up from he was making $275, according to Stephen Gaither here, who I don't know if you posted that already on the chat.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, which was the highest in the MEAC. 275 is pretty good for a women's coach in the MEAC. To now, with the bonuses, could be anywhere up to $575,000 at Auburn. And the budget that he's going with, again, I mentioned this earlier, a $1.33 million budget to about a $5.6 or $7 million budget. So almost 5 times the budget increase. But Drew, what's the difference between Vickers and Reed? And is it just a timing thing? Or dare I say, why wouldn't Reed have gotten the kind of opportunity that Vickers is getting? And I know I might be stepping into it, Drew, but if you can see where I'm going here.
I know exactly where you're going.
There's one distinct difference, which is kind of fascinating in women's college basketball. I don't know. What is it, Drew? What's the difference between Reed and Vickers? What difference do you see that, I don't know. Am I reading too much? Am I reading into it too much? Or am I trying to start
outside the obvious? Outside of the obvious of gender, Brian, and I'll put it out there. Obviously, one's a male, one's a female. There is one one glaring stat, Brian, that you failed to mention. The last 2 seasons, Vickers is a combined 30-10 non-conference.
Okay.
Take the last couple of seasons of Tamika Reed's best 2 seasons, non-conference, were combined 13-14. And that would be the 21-22 and the 23-24 season. So Vickers has performed better outside of the conference than Tamika Reed did. So your question is, Brian, is that non-conference record? Because that is really the only metric that Vickers is beating Tamika Reed on. Conference winning percentage overall goes to Tamika Reed.
Yep.
Total wins goes to Tamika Reed. Average seeding, because they got this 13 this year, but Jackson State's average seeding was higher than Norfolk's average seeding in the tournament. Once again, goes to Jackson State. That is really the only number that I see where Vickers has a significant advantage. Everything else is virtually even, Brian, or lean towards Reed. So we'll take it there. Now, I will say this. That 30-10 record, we all know. No offense to Norfolk State, behold the green and gold, and Larry Vickers, but we all know all non-conference schedules are the same, Brian. We know
you said they are or not?
Are not the same.
Right.
We know both on the men's and the women's side at Norfolk State, they will pad their non-conference schedule with D2s, NAIAs, and other alphabet soups. So, I would have to look up and see what that record is against Division Ones versus Tamika Reed's record against Division Ones. And I almost guarantee you all the Tamika Reed's games were Division One games. Some of them high major, some of them mid major, some of them low major. Whereas I know Norfolk has traditionally sprinkled in some non-Division One games into their non-conference schedule. So, but Vickers at Auburn, first class facilities at Auburn. I've been in their facilities many a times. For recruiting ground there, and you got Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, in the Tennessee, Florida. So you got a good recruiting ground there. So it's going to be interesting. I think Vickers with support can succeed at Auburn. But I will say this, Brian. The pressure on Vickers at Auburn is probably a hell of a lot more than it is on Reed at Charleston.
At Charlotte.
I'm sorry, Charlotte.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's SEC country. It's SEC country. No doubt. I asked a good friend of ours, Mo Carter, who covers sports in Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama, to give me his perspective on the top Division I women's basketball programs in the state. Alabama, he put at number 1, followed by Troy at number 2, and Auburn at 3. So he's walking into one of the top 3. And again, it is the SEC. And
but you're walking into a conference that features South Carolina, LSU, and the Texas schools. So let's be realistic, Brian. If you finish in the top 4,
I don't know about this statement right here. I don't know about this.
Arguably, the only other conference that could compete would be the Big Ten, and the only reason the Big Ten can compete is because they stole USC.
Well, they stole and UCLA. I was going to say
UCLA.
They grabbed UCLA and
but if they're not 1, they're 2.
I agree.
Hands down. Any conference that has South Carolina and LSU is going to be considered one of the top conferences in the nation.
It took me a second because for some reason I thought South Carolina was in the ACC, but no, that's Clemson that's in the ACC. So yeah, my bad. All right. I'll give you that, them boys. That the competition in the SEC, it is tough. It's naturally going to be tough. It is one of the top 2 conferences.
It's gonna be tough for him to be the best women's basketball team in that state. It's going to be tough for Coach Vickers to make the claim that he has the best women's basketball team in the state of Alabama.
Here's why. Here's why I don't think that'll be hard. If you notice anything about, I don't think I've ever heard Larry Vickers talk about Norfolk State being the best program in Virginia. He just has a quiet work confidence about him that we talk about Norfolk State being one of the best programs in women's basketball on the HBCU level, right? But I don't think I've ever heard Vickers talk about it like in those terms.
Well,
So
guess what's going to happen in Montgomery, Alabama, and Columbus, Georgia, which are the two markets that cover Auburn sports.
You think he's going to have to become that guy?
He's going to have to get a little bit of it in him. He may not become that guy, but he's going to show how to play him. He's going to have to stay at a Holiday Inn Express so that he can learn how to do it. And Bryan, once again, the media pressure in that area, because let me tell you something. We as HBCU people, we're rabid fans about our particular sports, correct?
Yeah.
About our school. But let's be real, Bryan. Most of us as HBCU fans, we gonna love our football team, win or lose. We're gonna die by our football team. We're gonna live by our basketball team, our men's basketball team. In that area, and I can tell you this because I live there. Auburn fans, be it gymnastics, bowling, softball, basketball, baseball, those people live
They're going to support.
By those sports. He won't be able to go to Publix, Kroger, or anything else without them people knowing who he is. You can stay under the radar at a Norfolk State. So
the recruiting. Let me ask this. The recruiting angle, and I appreciate you guys in the chats. Great comments. The recruiting angle, he will benefit greatly from the Diamond Johnson and is it Mimi Wheeler? Wheeler, who really Johnson's season was so huge that I think people may have forgot that Wheeler was still on this team. She was hurt the last two seasons at Norfolk State, right? And Johnson came on board this year. And so Norfolk State could very well have two ladies drafted in the WNBA. Johnson in particular, and I think, again, this is something that he alluded to in his post-game press conference, and I think I saw this from Steve Gaither, HBCU Game Day, in speaking about Diamond Johnson and the impact. But if you have that level of player saying that, oh, he can coach, don't you think that now, hey, you're going to go and you're going to have all of these extra bells and whistles, NIL money, and so on and so forth at Auburn that maybe you didn't quite have at Norfolk State, right? You're going to have this now at Auburn. It's going to be a real attractive offer in the transfer portal. I will not be surprised to see Auburn at or above 500 this upcoming season. And then one last thought I have here, Drew. I found it really interesting from the Auburn perspective that the 19-game winning streak that ended for Norfolk State yesterday when they played Maryland, you know where it started, Drew?
Auburn, Alabama.
It started at Auburn. So imagine that program who gets knocked out of the NCAA tournament first round, and they decide that they're going to, release, the coach who was there, Johnny Harris. Now Harris had a 5-year deal, so I don't know if I've seen that I don't know if Vickers' contract is 5 years. The numbers I've seen look similar to what Harris received, right? Where, but I thought it took a lot for the athletic director at Auburn to actually pull and kind of have that thought and say, hey, you know what? As we're looking for a new coach, I really like what I saw. ADs keep a short list, Drew, right? Every good athletic director has a short list in their drawer of whoever might be the next head coach, or at least people maybe those are people that you're looking at. And I bet you after that loss, the name Larry Vickers was on a card in the desk. And it was like, you know what? If something happens and we need to move on from our current coach, I could see, let me start doing some research and digging on Larry Vickers. And according to a couple of the articles I read, I mean, that's what led them down the path of getting Vickers. And, I'll tell you this, I haven't had time to do this, but I'm willing to bet money, much like Tamika Reed last year. Larry Vickers' record at Norfolk State is probably as good or better than a couple of other big name hires that just recently happened within women's basketball. There were some other names that were just hired over the last 24, 48 hours, I think at Missouri, a couple other programs, right?
That's all I believe.
Arkansas I saw some people posting that they just named their coach. I don't know who it was. It's not Dawn Thornton, apparently, because HBCU Twitter would have gone nuts if it was Dawn Thornton. There was an Arizona State job that opened up. But anyway, the coaches who got hired there, I bet if you go in and look at their records, Vickers, like Reed, probably had a better record. Right? Yeah.
Well, it's going to be interesting, especially in today's era, Brian. And, we just saw this in the NCAA tournament. Who was it? Drake, where the coach took the job at Drake. He was coaching Division II the previous year, and he brought 3 or 4 Division II players with him to the next level. And those players were able to compete, and Drake got that first round win. It will be interesting. Obviously, I'm not going to call any of the Norfolk players by name, but it will be interesting to see if any of those Norfolk players follow him to Auburn. And Brian, we as coaches know who can play in our conference. With any other MEAC players potentially wind up at Auburn because they got another year left. I'm just saying.
Well, his top 2 at Norfolk State, I think, are done.
They're done. We're done.
Wheeler and Johnson are done. But he has been recruiting, obviously,
just Brian,
over the last couple seasons. So
look at what happened at our institution, at FAMU, and how many players our coach brought with him from his previous institution.
Just on name alone.
I took the job. I'm bringing my point guard with me. I'm bringing this with me. I'm bringing that with me. So it's bound to happen.
Yeah. All right. Let me make mention of earlier in the week, the resignation of Sandy Pugh. It was not a retirement, Drew. The official release from Prairie View says Pugh resigned. She was not returning to lead the Lady Panthers. She'd been the coach there since May of 2018. I believe prior to coaching at Prairie View, she had coached at Southern University, if I've got my history down. And I'm curious, let me see. Career record for Pugh, 297 and 338 over 25 seasons. At Prairie View, she was 80 and 115. And so it remains to be seen. I remember when we did the COVID fantasy, the fantasy COVID season, we got a chance to get to talk to Coach
her
back in the day, back in the BCSN fantasy basketball tournament. I think that was the year that there was the COVID year where there was no COVID tournament. And so we ended up kind of creating one.
And we had a couple thousand people participate.
We did. We had some great participation in that, and I think that was kind of fun to kind of get to know people and get to know. I'm glad somebody still remembered. I'm glad somebody. I just remember, yeah. Unfortunately, and so we got that was very early in Coach Pugh's tenure at Prairie View, and never quite had the success.
I don't even remember who won the men's version. And the D2, and the D, and yeah.
I don't know. I know at Southern she had 14 of the 15 years that she was at Southern were winning seasons. When she was there, Southern championships and such. So definitely one of the legends. All right, so the new head coach at Arkansas, Kelsey Music. I don't think she was a HBCU grad. Just a guess, wild guess. Can we, before we close out, Drew, can we transition to the other big coaching news that happened yesterday in the past 24, 48 hours?
Oh, is that on the gridiron, Brian?
It is on the gridiron. It's on the gridiron. 2 weeks ago when we were on this show, we were kind of talking about Eddie George leaving Tennessee State and how that kind of caught us by. It was like, what? Really? It's happening? Yeah. Remember we had Brandon King on the show. We talked about that 2 weeks ago. Well, on this Sunday, we kind of talk about the news that Reggie Barlow is leaving his post as the head coach of the UFL's DC Defenders, right? On the, he had been coaching them, actually coached them when they were part of the XFL that one season. And then, of course, the merger took place. But Barlow is going to take over for Eddie George at Tennessee State University. And of course, Barlow's had experience as an NFL player and an HBCU coach, had a successful run in the XFL/UFL with the DC Defenders. I believe I'm kind of reading the article here from Game Day, from HBCU Game Day. In 2013, he was inducted into the SWAC's Hall of Fame in recognition of his collegiate career at Alabama State, correct?
Correct.
Uh-huh.
And then I would say he coached at Alabama State and then later at Virginia State.
Right, where he had an unbeaten season at Virginia State. How far did that team go playoff postseason far? Drew, do you recall?
Do not recall.
Okay. Let's see. At Alabama State, He had a 49-42 record. Of course, his team. He had the pleasure of coaching the late Tavares Jackson, who would later go on to the NFL from Alabama State. And then he won a CIAA championship. He was the coach of the year in 6 seasons for the Trojans, 34-16 overall record. And Doc says he did lose his first year, the first round exit in the playoffs there at Virginia State. He was the XFL Coach of the Year in 2023. The DC Defenders had the league best 9-1 record. Unfortunately, they stubbed their toe in the championship. Bless you.
Excuse me.
Yeah. And so now he takes over at Tennessee State University, Drew. 1 week before the start of the UFL season. Couldn't be avoided, though, but, had to happen. But big time step up here for Tennessee State. I know there was exactly that pollen is caught in Drew. It caught Drew. Exactly. There's a big time step up for Tennessee State. I mean, I think when you can, I think there was a lot of people that kind of chuckled or scoffed or really shook their head at the rumored report that Jeff Fisher, former NFL coach, was a potential candidate for the job. And there were even some circulations that had said Tennessee State was going to hire Jeff Fisher. I don't really know how much, I don't know how close or true that was. Maybe that was just all internet conjecture. But Drew, what's your thoughts on how big of a hire it is for Tennessee State to be able to go from Eddie George to Reggie Barlow?
That's so you try number one, unlike before, you've got somebody who actually understands the HBCU culture in Reggie Barlow.
Yeah.
So y'all have to excuse me. I'm dealing with drip right now, so I'm just gonna talk instead of let my face be shown right now. But yeah, I think that's huge. I spoke with Reggie back during football season. We were, I think we was in Mobile together when Alabama State and Alcorn played in Mobile, and he was doing, I think he was doing color for Alabama State radio at that point. Okay. So the one thing that people forget, the UFL, as it's called now, Brian, is not a full-time gig.
No, it's not.
So
it's only a 3-month league, 4-month league, probably.
Right. And the way they restructured it, he only gets paid during the season from that job source. So now, just from a family perspective, he is, he's got steady income, and he will, and if that's true, Lawrence, he has 8 home games.
It is true. I was just about to talk about the schedule here in a second.
Wow. I mean, that's tremendous, man. That is tremendous. Of course, the question is, can he compete in that OVC and still win those sprinkled in HBCU games that they have?
Well, those first 4 games that Lawrence mentions, they open the season hosting North Carolina A&T. I believe they usually call that the John Merritt Classic. Then they host North Dakota State, traditional former multi-year champion of FCS level. Then they host Alabama A&M on September 13th. And then they have a bye week. And then they host their first conference game against Tennessee Tech on September 27th. I don't know how many times you get a chance to host 4 consecutive home football games. That at the HBCU level, that's rare. That's some Big Ten SEC level scheduling.
Brian,
But
not the first 4 home games are rare. The fact that you actually have 8 home games is probably rarer, if that's even a word, more rare than the first 4 at home.
right. Outside of the conference, well, and this is a year again where you get to play 12. You can play 12 regular season games. So
Yeah, this is the last year.
State, right. Well,
Because
remember Tennessee State has, I think last year they played 12 as well. And they do play Howard on October 18th, and I think that's homecoming. I think homecoming, they host Howard for homecoming. So they've got 3. Look,
which I would not have done.
You wouldn't have played Howard homecoming?
No.
Why not? The folks, Tennessee State fans have been complaining about not playing HBCU programs. You got an HBCU school for homecoming.
No. I play Howard. I just don't make that the homecoming game.
Well, I mean, I don't think people were coming to the other games, though, Drew. That's the problem. They weren't. They weren't, man. It is.
So homecoming against the OVC wasn't happening, huh?
It hadn't been happening. Trust me, my sister's a TSU grad. She has told me the stories. She's like, folks do not want to. It's a big thing. I mean, it's a whole nother show that I think we've had and other shows have talked about. I think we're all aware of Tennessee State's problems. My question is, how long are Tennessee State fans going to allow it? It's like, is this going to be a continuous every year conversation that we're going to have? Are we every year going to talk about how poorly attended Tennessee State football games are?
We've been having this conversation since we were both in high school.
Damn.
Since they joined the OVC.
Well, the question is, if Barlow can win, and Barlow's going to have to actually, I saw pictures of Eddie George already in spring practice at Bowling Green. So I don't know when Tennessee State spring ball starts. I don't know if interim coach Mickey Allen, he may have already have started spring football. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they've already started, but I applaud Tennessee State on the hire.
Hey, Brian, can I put a spin on the whatever they're going to call the Tennessee State Alabama A&M Classic?
All right, is that a thing? Is there a name that's being proposed?
I don't know if there's a name on it or not, but let's think about this. Reggie Barlow, Alabama State grad, State grad, gets to play Alabama A&M in another classic situation. Don't you think there's going to be something about that game, at least from his perspective?
What was you got to go back and look to really maybe, I'm sure somebody's already done it. What was his record as a player and a coach against Alabama A&M?
And I've had this conversation with Reggie, and I know it's a little personal for him, because when he was at Alabama State, obviously Tuskegee and Alabama State playing the Turkey Day Classic, right? Mm-hmm. He never beat Tuskegee at Alabama State.
Oh, okay.
The only time that he beat
some good teams, though, right? If I recall,
right, both teams had good teams during those times. The time that he did beat Tuskegee is when he brought Virginia State into Alumni Bowl and beat Tuskegee. And yes, he still wears that one on his chest. The fact that the only time he beat Tuskegee, he came into Abbott Stadium and beat them. So I think that game's going to be personal, Brian, at least from his perspective.
Mm. All right. Well, it's one of the things that I think we're going to have to pay attention to in the upcoming weeks as we move forward. So, All right. Any final thoughts? I don't have much left, Drew. I don't know what else you want to get out before we close out the show. Yeah.
Couple of notes before we get out of here, Brian. Basketball season is officially over for all HBCUs now. What we did not discuss are the Division twos and NAIAs that closed out last week, Brian. So since our show with Keisha and I were together on last Sunday, I will start off on the men's side in Division two. We know Virginia State won their first game. They lost Sunday evening to Gannon by a score of 92-66. And also Fayetteville State, who won their game on that previous Saturday, lost to number 1 West Liberty by a score of 89-69. So that closed out the season for the men on the Division 2 level. All of the women lost the day before in Division 2. So I believe we went over all those scores on that previous Saturday show. A previous Sunday show, but I'll go back over the playoffs for the Division 2 on the women. Gannon beat Fayetteville State in a 2-7 match by a score of 60-50. Let's see. Virginia State lost to Edinburgh by a score of 80-68. There was another CIAA school. I can't find them right now as I'm going up and down my list. And Miles also lost that weekend also. So yeah, all that closed out Division 2 basketball, both men and women. And in the NAIA, in case some of you guys missed it, we are on the men's side. Langston's season came to an end on Thursday night in Municipal Auditorium in Kansas City, Missouri, by a score of 95-65 to the College of Idaho. So that cleared out the NAIA on the men's side. And on the women's side, let's see, Xavier, the Gold Nuggets lost to Southern Oregon by a score of 67-60 at the Tyson Event Center in Sioux City, Iowa. Also on that day, same venue, Langston lost to Dorrit of Iowa by a score of 55-51. So that closed out the women in the NAIA level, Brian. So we've already been over the BCIC. So I think that officially closes our basketball season, Brian.
Well, again, not officially, Drew, because as I mentioned earlier, we still have 3 teams, still playing tomorrow, as well as and Tuesday. So again, you've got Howard, Texas Southern playing tomorrow, Coppin State on Tuesday.
Oh yeah, again, I forgot. Yes, you're right. That closes it out on the lower levels. How about that?
Right. And again, Israel, yes, no HBCU teams went to the NIT, the CBI,
any other alphabet soup,
any other alphabet lettered postseason tournament. No, but yes, nothing for the men. There were only 2 men's Division I programs that advanced into postseason play, and that was Alabama State, who went 1-1, and Norfolk State, who went 0-1.
Right. And last one, Brian. Bowling. In the SWAC. Bowling. Yes.
All right.
Number 5, Prairie View defeated number 2 Southern by a score of 4-2 for the SWAC Bowling Championship, Brian.
All right. Well, I saw North Carolina A&T women won over in the MEAC. They're like a dominant program. So I mean, they just. I think
so A&T women stayed in the MEAC for bowling.
Yes, I saw something posted that North Carolina A&T's women. Actually, I think somebody even posted it in the chats. Mentioned it as well. So, yeah, I guess since you mentioned Prairie View's bowling, I guess I should mention them as well. Again, the portal for me, Drew. The big story coming up this upcoming week is the portal. Opens tomorrow. Thank you, Lawrence. And Lawrence says Fayetteville State three-peated in the CIAA for the bowling. So thank you for that. The portal opens. There's already been some transfer news. The SWAC Player of the Year from Florida A&M jumped in the portals. Other big names have jumped in the portal. That's what you're going to see here over the next week or two. I also think.
Can I say something?
Let me finish one thought here, because this is my final thought about this upcoming week. I also think it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coaching landscape, because I think there are contracts that'll be ending at the end of March, and who knows? It'll be interesting to see what happens over the final week of the month. I mean, how many days we got set? No, we got another.
We got a week.
We got another show. So
we got a week in a day.
Yeah, you know what? So this conversation may get tabled. We may have some juicy news next week on next Sunday's show, because the last day of March is the 31st.
Yeah.
But keep your ears open and your eyes locked in on your favorite HBCU sites for news regarding coaching opportunities that might open up over the next week. All right, that's all I got.
Word of advice to all the young men and young women who have either put their name out there that they will be entering the portal or will enter the portal. You will be a small fish in a big sea. There will probably be over 2,000 basketball players going into the portal over the next few weeks, Brian. Add that to the junior college players. Add that to the high school freshmen. Add that to the guys who get the extra year due to the ruling that says NAIA and junior college players who are already on the Division I level can get at least one more year. The Vanderbilt ruling, as I'm calling it. The quarterback is for Vanderbilt. There will probably be easily 2,500 players out there. Be prepared to be disappointed. Be prepared to be disappointed when the offer that you thought was coming for you to go to D1, D2, D whatever does not come. What will you do? Will you continue your education? Will you continue to dream? Will you try to sign to go overseas? Will you try to sign to go to some other minor league? You know, there's this thing, Brian, and it's on a commercial that Denzel Washington plays, and we play it at Morehouse. You know, he doesn't believe in having a plan to fall back on. He says if he wants to fall anywhere, he wants to fall forward.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think some of these kids may fall backwards. Some of these kids may fall forward. But even if you fall forward, do you have your hands out to brace yourself before you hit the ground? That's what some of these players who are hitting the portal over the next week will come to that realization of. And will your current coach allow you to come back?
Well said, Drew.
I'm just putting it out there, Brian. It's gonna be a lot of kids disappointed. And they're gonna be mad at everybody except the one person who they need to be mad at, Brian. Themselves.
Well, I'd love to do more.
I'm done.
Information or gather more information. Look, I'm going to put this out here now. If anybody knows of, if you are an adult or a parent of somebody who is jumping into the portal, or maybe you're giving advice to someone, I would love to have you on. I would love to hear what advice and the stories that are out there, because this is a fascinating time that we're in college athletics, and I just want to know what everyone's chasing. So, I mean, maybe for next week, if you want to hit us up on Twitter, you see my handle
hit the portal for the right
365.
reason. I'm sorry, Brian.
That's all right. I was just going to say, hit us up, hit me up. I would love to maybe bring you on the show. I would love to open up the we don't have phone lines, but at least give out the link and invite some of these advisors, parents, family, friends. I'm curious to hear what advice the student athletes are getting, because, man, I mean, it's this new world of college athletics, and sometimes you've eloquently stated it, Drew. People are chasing, and sometimes you're going to leave a good situation, and you're not necessarily walking into a better one. Well,
my last thing on this.
Yeah.
My last thing. Yeah. Right. I love my HBCU education. I know you loved your HBCU education. As many of those who are on this podcast love their HBCU education. And I'm going to say this. If you who are entering the portal are not in a situation where you are going to be financially better by going to another institution, then now, by all means, Brian, if they offer you the bag and the bag is legit, I'd never tell nobody not to take the bag, Brian.
Yeah,
but if
what
you're
is
going,
that number though? Isn't that crazy, Drew? What is that number?
But that's a personal thing, whatever that number is. But if they offer you the bag that you want at another institution, by all means, take that bag. But if you're going on the wing and a prayer, let me tell you something. Nobody's going to love you like at HBCU. As bad as you may think you have it at an HBCU. And Brian, you and I, we can tell some stories about how bad it was. But I wouldn't have traded it for nothing in the world, because I would not be the man that I am today were it not for my education on the highest of 7 hills. Or when I decided to continue my education and let my mother, Tuskegee, teach me, which is why I work where I do to turn them into Morehouse men now. And each one of y'all on this podcast could probably has a similar story. But
all right,
I wouldn't trade it in for nothing in the world. Think about it. Think about it, young men. Think about it, young women.
Well said, Drew. Well said. All right, that's going to wrap it up for tonight. I want to encourage everybody as you're heading out, hit the thumbs up and the like button. Do me a favor, if you would, hit the thumbs up and the like button, however and wherever you're watching the show. Also, I want to encourage you all to go check out the BCSN Pod Zone. BCSN Pod Zone, where you can not only catch our show, but also Dr. Graville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. If you missed the Carlos Brown show from yesterday, if you are a Southern Jaguar fan, if you Carlos had a great conversation with the panel, and then he also had the head men's basketball coach Kevin Johnson and then the head football coach as well, Terrence Graves, all a part of yesterday's show. You can catch all of that on the BCSN Pod Zone. Everywhere you download podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, all of those great places. BCSN Pod Zone. That's going to do it for this show. You see the YouTube, you can join the JBN family, JBN online/join, and be a part of the Black College Sports Network. Help us to continue doing what we're doing. That's going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for tuning in. For A.D. Drew, I'm Bryan Fulford. Appreciate everybody for tuning in and watching the show tonight. Appreciate all the commentary in the chat, and hit the thumbs up and the like button when you leave. Have a great week, everybody, and peace out.
Drop a light, everybody. We'll holla.